Welcome back to Bitwig Studio, my friends. So I figured today we're going to talk about a fairly exclusive method in Bitwig, as far as I know, to use any audio that we have and turn it into MIDI clips. Now that I mention it, I think Ableton has something similar. But for Bitwig users, this is a really nice workaround, really, because sometimes we have an idea in our minds and we want to kind of get it into the machine. Normally, of course, what we do is to use an instrument track and to kind of program the MIDI pattern with the mouse, or we can kind of put in notes with the pen and all of this, and we try to match what we are drawing here to what we have in mind. And so we want to kind of make that congruent. And the more you work on this work in progress, the more you kind of lose sight of your original idea, because you stumble upon new ideas and different rhythms here while you try to match them. So this might not be ideal, even though the more you do this, the better you get at it. The other way, of course, is to use a MIDI keyboard or a MIDI controller and to use the piano keys on your MIDI keyboard to kind of put the notes in, or especially hit the notes at the right time to get that rhythm that you have in mind. And some of those MIDI controllers have pads nowadays that you can hit kind of to control your drum kit or whatever it might be. So while these methods are fairly common, they might not always be the most ideal, especially if you want to be in a workflow kind of situation. And so what I always wanted to do is to be able to simply kind of drum a pattern and record it with my microphone and kind of use that as the basis for further manipulation in MIDI and to trigger synthesizers with it. So I put a peak limiter on the master just so we don't blow our speakers here, because the amplitudes might vary. And this is one of the clips that I recorded here. And it's fairly straightforward. It's just me hitting my legs, as you can hear. Naked legs. And so what we want to do here is to simply put a compressor on it and kind of tame the signal and make it more even in terms of volume, so the amplitudes don't vary so much. Maybe like so. Doesn't really matter. Yep. And then all we wanted to do in Bitwig is using something called the replacer. And it's precisely what it does. It will take any audio that you have and run it through your threshold and put it out as MIDI on the other side. So here we make sure that we have the threshold below the maximum amplitude. And this is not going to be ideal. It's just to get the point across and the idea across. So, okay, cool. Now we have this. Now what we want to do is open generator. And in here, we put our VST, or our synthesizer that we want to use. For ease of demonstration, it will just be the polysynth for now. Put this mix all the way up, because left is all the way is audio, and to the right 100% is just what comes out of it in terms of MIDI. And you might be surprised. There we are. And the cool thing is, when we kind of drum the beat this way, we don't have to worry about, kind of finding the right grid options or offsetting it with trios or something. We can simply just kind of intuitively hit whatever, the table or your legs or something, and kind of drum the beat. And by that, kind of get a real natural groove and kind of port that into any VST and any synthesizer. This is just awesome. And of course, you can do the usual shenanigans and manipulate it, which we're not going to do here. So this is basically it. And of course, what you now have is the key option here. So you could kind of simulate different MIDI notes by simply choosing the key. And automate this even to kind of, make a melody happen. But that's rather cumbersome. So what way do we get around this? I mean, we kind of want the notes, right? I mean, we hear the notes now, but we don't see them because we only have this audio here. What we want to do is to add another audio track. I think so. And no, of course not. Of course not an audio track. We want the MIDI notes, right? So we use another instrument track that is empty, and we put its input and set it to the device's replacer. So we set the input of our new instrument track to the output of the replacer device on the first track. And that's basically it. All now we want to do is arm this, hit record, and see the magic happen. Cool. So now as you can see, even it's super natural because it's all like off the groove here and there. And of course you could go to play and hit record quantization if you want it quantized, or you could quantize it later. But the very point of this is to kind of get the groove into MIDI notes that is really natural sounding and off at times. So this way we could actually record those notes and then of course do anything with this. Put any device here and kind of mess around with that. You know, and do the usual manipulation of whatever. But now we kind of have the MIDI notes in here. And if you streamline this and if you do this more often, you'll find that it's a really quick way to get really complex patterns and percussions and placements of where you want the MIDI notes to be into your machine. And of course you could do this in multiple runs, so you could just hit the ones with one and then listen back to it and overdub with another pattern, you know. And you could of course also make several tracks happen that complement each other in that way. And I tried to record this video a few times because there's another way you could go about this, and it's fairly advanced, if you will. You could try to, let me just show you this clip before I say anything more, and get this replacer off for now. And I already messed with the pitch here. You can disregard that. That was from an earlier try. Well, that's a natural clip here. What you can do, and it takes some tweaking, is to hit with one note, hit a low kind of sounding thing, like a thumpy, bassy sound, and with the other hand, hit something that is really high pitched. Because in this way, and I will just throw this out now in theory, because it's really, with the sample that I've recorded here, it's rather hard to do. What you want to do then is to split the signal up. So you would use an FX layer and put an EQ, put in double that, duplicate it, and call this low sound, and call this one high sound. And you would tweak it with the low sound. You would take away the top frequencies in order to just try to capture the bassy thump of it. And use the replacer after it to just be triggered when you hit the bassy sounding thing. And then you would go on the other one and you would kind of cut the lows away. And by this method, you would actually have the luxury of having two different sounds according to which ones of the notes you would have. So you could replace the low sound here after it. You would put a replacer and put a kick behind it, and the high sound you could put a snare behind it. And by this method of splitting into the frequencies, you would actually have a really nice way to use a single soundtrack, a single audio clip, to control several different sounds. Now the problem that I have here is that both sounds are too similar in the original. And so, as you can hear, even the clap or me hitting my leg is still contains a lot of bass notes. And so I tried this for a few times, but it would just rob too much of your time here. If you wanted to do this right, you would try to get a really thumpy thing, like hitting your chest, and then on the other beat kind of hit metal together, like two spoons or something. And just in this way, you would be able to split it up. Of course, you could also go in here and split the notes up manually, but the whole point of this is that we want to automate this in order to create those different sounds. So, I hope this didn't confuse you too much, but if you're in this for a little bit longer, I think you got the idea. If not, please just comment below and let me know. So to recap, what do we need? We want an audio track in here. Could be anything recorded either live. You could play this live. You could pre-record it and simply drag it in here. Or you could even use an external recorder and record anything while you're out and about. So you don't need to be in your studio to prepare your next track, if you will. You put the audio in here. You put a compressor behind it to tame the signal. You put a replacer. I'll just do all of this again, just so you can remember. You put a replacer after the compressor. You put the threshold so it activates, which you can tell here. You could also use this frequency part to kind of specify which range of the frequency spectrum should trigger. You open generator. You put your synthesizer that you want to use in there, put the mix to 100%, and there you go. You have just used a beat recording of something and actually create your Midi sound with it now. Cool! So if you find this helpful, I would always appreciate your love, and I always appreciate your time and watching. If you have any ideas to this, please just comment below and let the others know. And give some feedback. It's always super welcome, especially if you have anything to criticize or if you have any other ideas with this. And of course, in the description, you will find an affiliate link for buying Bitwig if you still want to buy it. And you will get 5% off your purchase if you do, if you use the coupon code. And I'm really looking forward to exploring some more Bitwig ins and outs in the next videos. And thanks for your time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.